Good morning, gents. As you can see, I'm hand sharpening a knife. Now, this is an L.T.wright Genesis, and I've been after one of these for ages. I really wanted to try one out because people absolutely rave about them. So one of you, gents Mario, reached out and said, "I've got one, Rob, do you fancy doing a deal on a knife?" So I've made Mario a knife, and he sent me this and some money. Now, when it arrived, it was blunt. It was blunt, and I don't think Mario did this, mate. This was probably before you had it. The spine here was chewed up like somebody'd hit it with a rock. It had a mirror polish, but it had a secondary bevel. Now, this is an A2. And from experience, I found A2 very chippy on a 0 Scandi grind. It's only like 3mm or an 8 thick. And as you can see, the grind on this is really high. So this is a very slicey grind. Now, my plan today was to go up to the woods and review this knife and do a nice long video on it. So, before I left work yesterday, I looked at it and it's a bit blunt. So I put it on my little shark maker aligner gadget, which is up there. Hang on. It's there. Now I usually only sharpen folders like my little paramilitary 3, which I've always got on me. This just cuts cardboard all the time, cardboard and plastic and tape and things. So I usually just give it a quick once over on that, and that's good enough. But because this is quite thin, it fits in the jaws. So I thought I'll put a quick micro bevel on it now, because the advice with these as well is to strop a micro bevel on them. So I thought I'll put a little micro bevel on it now, just so I can do the review. Not a good idea. I started putting it on and it was gradually creeping up the blade. So it wasn't a micro bevel, it was a secondary bevel. And I put it at a 13-degree angle, which I basically do my knives at 13 degrees each side. And it was coming up too high, and I thought, right, I'm going to have to sharpen it from scratch, because that wasn't good. It just looked awful, and it wasn't right. It wasn't as the knife would arrive from the maker, so it's been on the stones. I've nearly got the micro bevel out, and the plan is, as soon as the micro bevel's out, I'll go through all the grits. Whether I'll take it super fine, I don't know. I'll see how I feel in possibly half an hour when I get to that point. So I'll probably get this to almost a mirror finish, and then I will polish a micro bevel onto it. I'll show it to you when it's done, and then hopefully one day this week I'll prize myself out of the workshop and I'll get to the woods and I'll do a review on it. It's a beautiful knife. It's really nice. It's got lovely desert ironwood scales and thick yellow G10 liners. It's really nice. So yes, I reground the spine. I put the flat on 400 grit mop to clean anything off it. And the finish on these isn't brilliant. I would say they've probably put it flat on a belt. Probably put it 120, 240, 400, but I haven't taken all the scratches out. So if you look close, it's got quite a lot of scratches on it. Well, I'm not in the business of hand flattening that. There's absolutely no point. So I put it on the wheel like that and give it a satin finish. So it's the blade is a lot nicer than it was when I had it. Yes, people rave about these. I actually would have liked to have had a brand new one to review, straight out of the box, straight from the company, but I couldn't find one. And at the moment, the way the postage is and the customs in the UK is absolutely terrible, and they're pulling knives out, and the police are coming around to see people saying, "Why have you brought a weapon from abroad?" And it's just nuts. It's just nuts. So this is what I managed to get, and it's beautiful. It truly is a nice knife. Right, so I'm going to get back on to sharpening this up. Right, I finally got it flat, and I've got a tiny little burr on it now. Now, when I'm sharpening on DMT stones, what I tend to do, so I started off on an extra course, and then I went to a course, and next thing I'm going on is fine, which is the red. Right, that's me done on the 600. I'm going to go on the green stone now, the fine stone, extra fine, and then I'm going to switch to the micromesh. Now, most of the time when I'm sharpening a zero Scandi, especially for a customer, if somebody wants to pay the extra for a mirror finish, I'll use a very fine ceramic stone. But I'm not going to do that on this. I'm going to use the micromesh strops instead, because I want to put a tiny convex in it. Obviously, like I said earlier, A2 on such a fine Scandi grind really can do with being a little bit convex for strength. The micromesh strops have got a little bit of give, so it'll naturally put a slight convex in it. Right. So back on the stones I go. Nice even grind on there after the fine, extra fine. Now I think I'm going to have to buy myself a new fine stone, the red one. I think so. I think it's had its day. Now I'm going to go on the micromesh drops. Now I usually do this dry, but I'm going to do it wet today. I made these strops a long time ago. This is only the second set I ever made. I got plenty of micromesh and they are basically due for a change. And these are going from 1500 grit to 12,000 grit. Now, micromesh, if I haven't explained this before, are different to regular sand and abrasive papers. That says 1500. But it's like 1500 particles per inch or something, where it's really, if you compare it to a normal one, that's probably a 240 grit. Now this one is quite clogged up, and that's why I'm going to use water today. Yeah, I'm getting there, getting there. Just a little bit. just that small amount of stropping has really evened things up on the edge. Now one good thing about doing stropping on abrasive paper, you can get in tight in there. Now very often when you're using either a DMT or a waterstone, the edge rounds on the actual stone and you can't get tight in there. But when you're using the strops, you can. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than seeing a sharpened knife and you've got an angle there and the clean edge doesn't match up. I know I'm being fussy, but that's just me. So yes, I'm going to crack on with these strops now, and then I'll show it to you when I've gone through them all. Right then, I'm halfway through the micromesh strops and it's got a lovely edge on it. I've still got a micro burr. I don't know if you can see it in the light, but that is a really nice edge. I went through all 6 micromesh. No, I've got 8. I went through all 8 micromesh. There's no need, right? I'm just saying 4 is probably enough because the gaps between the grits isn't a hell of a lot. So if you are going to buy micromesh to sharpen or finish, now if I was sharpening with micromesh, I would have changed these to fresh ones ages ago. But because I'm only finishing on them, I don't need to. But they last a long time. But as I say, if you're going to sharpen from scratch with them, I would definitely suggest changing them regularly. Perhaps every 3 sharpens, change them. But I'm finishing off with them, so it doesn't really matter if they're a bit worn. Time for the strop. I use blue paste. I always clean that strop first. Don't let this build up. I press hard. Now a lot of people say that pressing too hard on the strop creates a micro convex, so slight convex on the blade. Now this is A2 steel, which can be a bit chippy, so this really does need a bit of a micro convex. Ooh, nice and sharp. Right then, that sharp. The edge is pretty good, but I think I get a better finish from my Waterstone. It's either that or the fact that I really need to change them strops, because I can see quite a lot of marks, and the last knife I sharpened up to a mirror edge was for one of you guys, and it was an FTP in 52-100, and that had an absolute beautiful edge in it, and I didn't use the micromesh. I used my 3000 grit ceramic Waterstone. Now a few of you may think 3000 grit, that's a little bit rough to finish on, but for some reason this Waterstone leaves an absolutely beautiful polish. Okay, I got to strop it afterwards, but it really does a good job. But that's not too bad considering how cheap micromesh strops are. But yeah, I think I need to change them. Right, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your views. Ta-ra.